Hmm? Ah!
Again, I'm sorry. But please try not to scream.
Hey everybody, welcome to our podcast. I'm Jason.
And I'm Duncan.
And I'm Melissa!
Yay! And this is Game of Microphones, episode 31. That's our top 3 highlights this week of Game of Thrones Season 7, episode 2, Stormborn. And I think part of the reason why they're just doing so well right now. They're confident, they're creatively awesome, and they have more money than they've ever had to do their production. But I also think part of it is the show was so paced out in the beginning where they would take a long time for things to happen, and everyone got separated, and you kind of had an idea of people's trajectories, but it was taking seasons for them to get there in a very entertaining way. But now that all this stuff is coming together, it's like we've had 5 or 6 years of foreplay, and now we're finally getting to the stuff.
5 years of foreplay. Oh my god, that's another album name. We gotta write that.
You know what I mean? It's more satisfying because we had to wait so long.
Yeah, and that leads right into my number 3, which is the tightening of the story itself. And it's been super cool that we've been hearing these characters that have been apart or never interacted with each other or mentioned each other all of a sudden now all either together in the same room or speaking about each other. For me, it was really exciting to hear Jon Snow and Daenerys talking about each other.
I know.
And which is so cool. Mm-hmm. And just how everything's coming together. And I've heard that this season, the actors have had more screen time than ever before, even though there's fewer episodes than any other season. And it's just because that they're all on screen together now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they're all sharing screen time. What do you guys think about that? The tightening.
Yeah, it's like it's in this like total forward motion, like the wheels are spinning like they never have before. And it's got to be really cool for the actors too, because a lot of them, they're getting to actually work with these other actors. I'm sure they know, but they've never filmed scenes with. So it's probably really cool for them to finally be like, yay, we finally get to actually work together.
Yeah. Emilia Clarke's like, Kit Harington, you're in this? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, sorry.
Jon and Sansa had never had a scene together until the end of last season.
Really? They weren't in season 1 at all?
Never together, no.
Oh, wow.
Did not know that.
So their first screen time was, partway through season 6, which is pretty wild.
Yeah. And I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I was thinking Jon would end up going to Dragonstone to get Dragon Glass and try to get Dany to help them, and now it's happening. And I think, just to say it again, that they're going to end up in some kind of a relationship that will end tragically.
Oh,
right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was wondering how this will all play out. I mean, and of course, well, she's like, yes, that's fine. He can come and bend his knee. It's like, oh shit. Not that he's like, he's not, he's not a very, as far as being an egotistical king, he is not.
Yeah. He might go for that.
He has a responsibility to take care of. If he bends his knee and she neglects to fight against the White Walkers, he can't risk that, really. But think about this, bending the knee can mean more than one thing.
Yeah, what does it mean? It means, will you marry me?
Right.
I know, that's what you're getting at.
Right.
But what does it mean normally? It means I pledge to support you.
Oh, it means that pledging fealty. And I think that's what she meant when she said it, because she had a very stern tone.
But does that mean that he promises to do whatever she says no matter what, or what?
It basically means that you'll come when you're called.
Okay.
Yeah, that you become a subject of your liege lord or your grace.
And he's a man of honor, so he doesn't want to pledge to do something like that when he knows he's needed up in the north. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
So a way that they could get around that is by him bending his knee as a suitor. So then he would be king of the 7 kingdoms, or of the 5.5 or whatever at that point.
5.
With Daenerys.
5.72643.
Yeah. And that was possibly set up last season when Dario, she let him go and said that she may need to marry someone over there for strategic reasons.
And it may have even been more specifically foreshadowed by the scene after she rounds up in Meereen the heads of the great families, feeds a couple to the dragons, and then puts the others in some cells. And Hisdar Zolorak is one of them, and she goes to visit him in his cell, and he's sitting on his knees there, and she's talking about how, in order for her to really rule Meereen, she needs to form ties and get allies, and the best way to do that is through marriage. And she says, luckily, a suitor is already on his knees. Right? So he was a subject at that point, bending the knee for a totally different reason, but it ended up turning into, a marriage-related thing. So that could have been foreshadowing Jon bending the knee for a different purpose than he rises.
So, Melissa, does it bother you that she's his aunt?
I mean, that's if it was like a third cousin removed or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, go for it.
Right.
Wow, this is really saying a lot about me. Hey, I'm from the Ozarks, people.
We're all third cousins, practically.
That's right. Chaw chomping cousin fuckers. Yeah, no, aunt is pretty. That's pretty. I don't know. That's a little.
I mean, the reason why it doesn't really bug me that much is because Targaryens are famous for allowing brothers and sisters to marry. So that seems
it's
like
different times.
Yeah, it just seems like, this is further removed than that.
It's so funny that this show has sort of softened some people to the concept of incest. Like you right there, for instance.
I know.
I brought it up on the. In our group, the Game of Microphones group, I mentioned that, maybe they'll get married, bending the knee could mean something differently, and people are still grossed out by the concept. So
I mean, I think
mixed reactions.
In real life, maybe I still wouldn't suggest that you go having kids with your aunts and uncles.
No.
But
Right.
No. See, the thought of that is like, that's what probably makes it solid that I would be weirded out by that. I mean, it's Game of Thrones, so sure, they can get away with it. But in life, I can't even go there. I can't even verbalize that. I just can't even put that into words.
There must be some historical precedent. I don't really know my history very well.
Oh, yeah. European history, kings and, the royal families all intermarry repeatedly, and they're all related.
Oh, yeah. They're like,
That's why it's in
totally.
there, I'm sure.
To keep the bloodline all, right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Did you have any more to say about that, Duncan? Your number 3?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
Just the tightening of everything coming together is really cool.
We took that far.
Everything's really tightening to the point where people are marrying their aunts.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So, just before we go on, we didn't really say in general. It sounds like we all liked it. What did you think, Melissa, of the episode in general?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I mean, they'd have to really do something pretty far out for me to be like, eh.
Yeah, me too.
I know. There hasn't been an episode
really
yet.
off the mark.
Yeah, maybe we should even just skip that part. Maybe from now on, if one of us has a meh reaction, just speak up. Otherwise, we'll go straight into our...
All right.
But I thought it was cool how everyone's kind of marshaling their forces for battle on both sides.
Yeah.
And then we had the first strike in the war.
Yeah, and speaking of that first strike, I think a lot of one of the main causes of meh reactions for people has been the sand snakes.
Right.
And so
now they're like, yay!
2 out of 3. Now there's just the sand snake. Basically, so it'll be 1/3 the meh reactions.
It's called Stormborn, and I know that's because Dany is called Stormborn because she was born in a storm, and now there's another storm at Dragonstone, and maybe it's about the birth of Dany's conquest of Westeros or something like that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. The first line, "On a night like this, you came into the world," Tyrion says to Daenerys. I thought it was a pretty cool line, and Varys remembers the night and how the dogs were howling in King's Landing. Cool imagery.
Poetic.
Well, maybe I can, since you're starting with Varys, I'll go into my 3.
Yeah.
Was that awesome speech that, she's like, basically, Daenerys is talking to Varys. It's a lot of Y ending
all
names.
These Targaryen names.
Yeah. And basically like just challenging him, saying, "Are you gonna fuck me over? I don't think I trust you." And I just really liked how he responded to her and reminded her that, hey man, I came from the shit pile, and I did what I had to do, and I don't know, it was a really awesome speech. And sometimes when people stand up to her, it doesn't go over very well. And then it ended almost on this weird sweet moment of her reminding him that if you do, screw me over, I will burn you alive. But
right.
she kind of started smiling, and
and
he was kind of smiling like, I would expect nothing less from the Queen of Dragons, And
right.
so it was like this odd, like, kind of nice moment between them. But I don't know. It was a cool moment for just a different side of Varys. I felt like we saw
yeah, I thought it was really good.
Side of his character just in that bit.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not loyal to any individual or person whose views may change on a whim. I'm loyal to an ideology and loyal to the people and loyal to the small folk, and that's exactly what Daenerys is, where her loyalty lies as well. From everything we've seen, she cares about the slaves, she cares about the little people. So I think that Varys handled that perfectly. He's like, if you want blind loyalty, just have Tyrion kill me now, or something, whatever. Feed me your dragons, because I'm not going to be blindly loyal to anybody. I back an ideology, and I can relate to that sentiment.
Maybe he handled it almost too perfectly. He knew exactly what to say. I don't know. I believe in him, but she does have a point that he hired assassins to kill her, but even more so that he was ready to back her brother, who he probably knew was weak and cruel and stupid. And that's like, what about that? Like, he told her incompetence shouldn't be rewarded with blind loyalty, speaking about Baratheon, but then, why bring Viserys in to replace him? So I think this needed to happen. She exiled Jorah when she found out he was a spy, so she doesn't take kindly to this kind of thing.
Right.
But I guess I believe in Varys. These days, he always seems very serious and true when he's talking about his motivations, and he backs Daenerys and Tyrion, who we know are good-hearted people. So I think he's a good person. But we've seen some pretty clever moves on his part. And Duncan, didn't you say he's one of the ones that doesn't have point of view chapters?
Right. Yeah. George R. R. Martin has said before that there are a few characters who would never have point of view chapters in the books, because, the book they're structured in a way where each chapter, it starts out like John, it's all from his point of view. And then Catelyn, all her point of view. So he had said that Varys, you'll never hear his point of view. He'll never have a point of view chapter. Same with Peter Baelish. And he may have mentioned a couple others as well. But there's other book stuff that plays into this that makes the dynamic slightly different for Varys' motivation, which I can't really get into here. But I trust Varys at this point, personally.
I do too. Another thing is, he mentioned, like you said, Melissa, that he came from what did you say, the shit pile? And
those were my words. Yeah.
Right after that, Melisandre comes in and she opens up by saying she used to be a slave. I think people know to start with that with Dany, because they know she's sympathetic.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, Varys did have it rough, though.
Right.
Well, I mean,
sure, he's not lying.
Yeah. I think he's pretty trustworthy. That these are not necessarily that he's trustworthy, but these are his honest motivations.
Mm-hmm.
I find that to be accurate.
The actor is definitely playing it as if he were speaking honestly too, just the way he's carrying himself. So if you were doing that and he actually isn't being honest, he would have to be a real psychopath.
Oh yeah.
Right.
To pull that off. Okay, my turn. So number 3, Sam and Jorah. I loved all that stuff with the peeling off of the grayscale.
Oh God.
And it wasn't as gross to me as I think it probably was to most people, because I just feel like, I this is kind of silly, but
it's
satisfying. I had a really bad sunburn a couple of weeks ago, and I just want it off. I started peeling. I'm like, get that stuff off of there. So yeah, it was kind of satisfying.
Get that stuff off of there.
I said it was, I actually thought that too. I was like, well, it's kind of like
a scab.
Yeah, it's like it's peeling a scab, but it's just,
it's God. Gross, yeah. And eating it.
And then the ooey gooey. I mean, did they have to make it ooey gooey?
Of course.
Of course they did.
See, this is one thing I really love about the Citadel is, at least I was expecting, okay, if there's one place in all of Westeros that's going to be really sterile and kind of quiet and boring and just books, it's going to be the Citadel. That it turns out it's like shit infested, and we get these gooey scabs, and then we get organs being pulled out of bodies, and it's this slimiest, grossest place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Which I love.
Yeah, that whole scene, and then that was like one of two scenes actually, where they they finished the shot going into another shot, where you're
the
like
pot pie.
Yeah, last week it was poop to soup, and this week it was pus to pie.
Pus to pie.
That was so disgusting. That part I was like practically gagging at, because you don't want to think about food at a time like that. And the food looked disgusting even on its own, not to mention
one of our listeners wrote in the group that basically it's a rule, like, do not eat during Thrones. Do not eat in Throne. I think they said.
So I had some just about grayscale. We might have talked about this before, but I just looked up some facts about it. So it's conducted by touching someone else who has it. We knew that. Or by touching unsterilized objects that have been touched by the infected, which, I mean, they had these like full body smocks and gloves on, but still...
his face, man.
Face was uncovered, and Sam passed over that rum and then grabbed it back and took a drink, and I'm like, dude, be a little more careful.
I thought the same thing. I was like, God, dude, what are you thinking?
And then, so it kills slowly, often over many years. In later stages, it goes to the internal organs, and then when it gets to the brain, it can result in violent insanity, as we saw with the stone men at Valyria. So the Archmaester says he just kind of guesses, it sounds like, but he's like, he thinks it's 10 to 20 years before it will kill Jorah, but 6 months or fewer before it gets to his mind. So he doesn't really have much time left. Yeah. Also, if you're infected, you're in agony, and you'll probably get shipped off to Valyria to live out your life as a stone man. And even if you're cured, like, you'll probably be scarred for life. I don't know. Well, Shireen is scarred for life, but maybe with this new cure, your skin might be baby smooth or something.
fresh
like
skin.
A spa treatment.
Yeah. That's one place where the show is actually giving a little compassion, because normally in the Game of Thrones world, they would just kill you. I mean, like, you know what? We're going to ship you off to live out the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's like the lepers from the... Yeah.
Leper colonies.
Yeah. So Sam wanted to cure him, I guess, because of his relationship with his father, Jorah, who they served together at the Wall, and Jorah saved Sam's life probably more than once. And he finds this cure, which is to remove all infected tissue and imply an ointment. And I love that the guy who wrote about the cure died of grayscale. But Sam decides to try it anyways, and doesn't even really give Jorah the choice. He's just like, okay, we're doing this. And then the whole procedure I thought was filmed really well. It was tightly filmed, and he kept going back to the book, which is like, that doesn't inspire confidence. You're looking at those instructions a lot.
Yeah.
Takes that
Jorah's like, have you ever done this before?
Yeah. It takes that big swig of rum first, and
has
him bite down
Drink
hard.
it all.
Then I like that he had those like tweezers or whatever, and he goes and he just like starts to take out the smallest little piece, and Jorah's like, "Oh!"
Yeah, right. That's what I was going to mention. That they've really introduced an element of comedy with Sam in these last couple episodes. Like he tells him, you're going to have to bite this because nobody knows I'm here, and it'll be the end for both of us. They hear us. And the second he touches him with the blade, Jorah's like, "Oh!" And he's like, "Shit!" Like right off the bat.
It's super
What's
funny.
It be like
too.
after an hour. Yeah,
it's really funny. And they showed a lot of it, and yeah, I just thought the whole thing, when they can, like, same thing with the poop scene last time, which I probably liked way more than I should have or anybody else liked, but when they can combine something that's kind of nasty and make it really funny, and also kind of tragic and horrible all at the same time, for some reason, I think that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny too. There's there's a few funny things about this scene. There's him chastising him immediately for being too loud when it's like the procedure has just begun. When he's sawing away at the tissue like hysterically.
And then it was great when he took that first big piece off, and Jorah's like, "Oh!" And then he looks over at him and he just nods. Keep going.
Yep, like keep going, buddy.
God.
Tough.
He's got to remove the entire upper layer of infected tissue. That's like 3/4 of Jorah's body at this point.
Do you think he's actually going to get cured?
I do.
Well,
You do.
I do think he probably is, but at the top of my page here I have Sam to the, in parentheses, unlikely rescue.
I hope so.
I don't know. Sam's a smart cookie. The Archmaester, it just reminded me so much of like our medical system, not to get political, but you come in there with like, well, I have this alternative treatment. Oh, no, I'll never work. Don't try it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, fuck it. Go for it, man. Try it.
Right.
And it did work, but then he just it reminded me of establishment medicine, of how things get shut the fuck down without even...
I mean, you should absolutely try it if there's no other recourse, especially. There's nothing else to try. I just want to add one more thing. It seems like Sam's doing better. I mean, they might just not be showing his bedpan disposal duties anymore, but maybe he's like moved on from that because we didn't see any of it this time.
Yeah, it seems like he's doing more productive stuff, and he seems confident in his treatment here.
All right, where are we? Duncan, number 2.
My number two is Daenerys and the Westerosi Lords. And we talked about her interaction with Varys. She also interacts with Lady Olenna, with the Sand Snakes. Melisandre is not a lord, but she interacts with Melisandre. I thought that she had a series of interesting interactions with all these characters. Yara says that they should attack King's Landing immediately. Ilaria Sand backs her on that idea. Khaleesi stands strong and says, we're not doing that. We have a different plan. She goes, ends up explaining their multi-pronged attack. Unfortunately, they didn't factor in Euron's ships, which have, thrown a big wrench in their plan here.
Yeah, but when that happened, the attack, after it was over, Jenny was like, well, there goes plan A.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
But yeah, it was fascinating to see them all around the table, basically planning over the taking of a whole country, basically.
I liked the interaction between Dany and Olenna, which was pretty cool. Dany says, I'm not going to be Queen of Ashes. And Olenna says that, well, everybody loved Marjorie, basically, but now she's Ashes.
Right.
And after they explain the plan, they kick out all the little girls, and she asks Olenna to stay and talk with her, and they have a cool little conversation there where Olenna basically tells her that, the Westerosi lords are sheep. Your Tyrion's clever, but I've known a lot of clever men, and I outlived them all by not listening to them. She says, you're not a sheep, are you? No, you're a dragon,
That was another example of like maybe the only other person to be able to speak with Daenerys that way.
Yeah.
She was pretty like, I mean, she was like that with Cersei, but yeah, she's
blunt.
very upfront.
But she was much more respectful towards Daenerys than she.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
She totally respects her. She's just trying to give her some good advice.
Yeah, she's speaking from a position of experience, and knowledge,
and also
success.
Daenerys pulled her aside, presumably because she could see, she wanted to get her, get on the same page and everything, because
she could see her wavering.
She respects her too. Yeah, and she said something interesting. I know you're here because you hate Cersei, not because you love me. And it's actually the same thing with Arya, and it made me realize, well, wow, she's got half of her army is the Unsullied and the Dothraki, but the other half are there just because they hate Cersei. So actually, Cersei kind of helped Daenerys quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And,
with her bad personality.
Yeah, she also, helped kill all of Jon Snow's family, basically. So there you go, another person that'll potentially join Dany out of hatred for Cersei.
And that's we got reminded of that by Tyrion, that Cersei,
he's got more cause to hate Cersei than you do.
Right. And that made me realize, oh yeah, Jon's not gonna, that's another reason why he would not want to go and just bend his knee to Cersei. She fucking killed his whole family basically, while the Lannisters did.
She got his father beheaded. She conspired to murder his mother, or his alleged, his stepmother and brother. Yeah, bad news all around. Basically.
And I loved when Tyrion said, for decades, Lannisters have been the true power in Westeros, and so that's why we need to go to Casterly Lock. It was just good to hear him say that. I don't think we've ever really heard anybody say that. But it's like, yeah, that's true. And so it's smart to go attack them right where they live.
Yeah, Robert's always been more into hunting and whoring than he has been ruling, and Tywin has been, the money power, basically controlling everything. He and Littlefinger and, Casterly Rock essentially has been propelling the kingship for a long time.
Do you think, basically this feels like Tyrion, it feels like Tyrion's plan, and Elena saying, hey, be a dragon. And it's kind of like, yeah, Tyrion had a similar peaceful plan for Marine, and then next thing you know, all the ships from all the surrounding towns were
launching
coming.
catapults.
Yeah. And the only reason why it worked out is because Dany got there in time with her dragons. So here he is again. I mean, it absolutely makes sense to me that, hey, if you can just get everyone to be on your side because they hate Cersei without having to fight too much, then try that. But we know this is a TV show and there's going to be big fucking fights. So we know it's not going to work out.
All she's got to do is ride from keep to keep on the back of Drogon and be like, join me or die. Basically.
Plus, I want peace and I love the people, but I will burn you alive if you don't.
We'll burn you.
And speaking of the telling Tyrion to send a raven to Winterfell, telling Jon to come, that his queen is summoning him, and to come south to Dragonstone and bend the knee. That made me think of another piece of Westerosi history, which is kind of interesting. When the Mad King arrived in the first place, there was a king in the north who at that point was Torrhen Stark, and the Mad King laid waste to all the southern kingdoms. He melted Harrenhal and had Harren the Black bend the knee and scorched all these armies on the field of fire and just laid legendary waste to the south. And when he came up north to treat with the king in the north, Torrhen Stark met him at a place called the Crossroads, I believe. I may be mistaken. There's an inn at this point. And basically Torrhen Stark, who's king in the north, head of a family that's been ruling the north for thousands of years, he decided to save the lives of his people and prevent the fields of fire from occurring in the north by bending the knee to Aegon. So it wouldn't be the first time if Jon bent the knee to Daenerys that a king in the north has in fact bent the knee to
and
a
that
Targaryen
worked?
Ruler. It did.
Okay, interesting.
They entered the fold of the kingdom, and the north was left unscathed, essentially, but part of a greater, the greater Seven Kingdoms.
And I liked the they're using little like Dungeons and Dragons pieces to plot out their strategy.
Right. Just like Stannis was, too.
There's little lions for the Lannisters. It's all their sigils. Sun-pierced arrow for the Martells. Dragons, of course. And roses for Tyrells. Those are the ones I saw. I don't know if there.
And there's a crowbar for Colonel Mustard in the room.
And there's the little thimble and the top hat.
Right.
And then they had plans for everybody, except I don't think they mentioned the Dothraki, right? They were sending the Unsullied to Casterly Rock.
Right. The Dothraki, I imagine, would stay with Daenerys and guard Dragonstone.
So they're camped out all around the island right now.
Probably. Yeah, if they don't have another task, I imagine that's what they'd be held for.
And I thought it was really, this is off on a different thing a little bit, but it was interesting that Jaime said this is the first time the Dothraki have ever been in Westeros in all of history.
Right.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, because they're they don't trust any water that their horses won't drink. So they're distrustful of the salt seas, basically.
Okay, whose turn is it? I think it's Melissa's.
Is it me?
Yeah.
What? Okay. Gosh, we keep talking about all the things I was going to. Let's see. I guess there was a part when Jaime Lannister was talking to. Oh God. Help me out, people.
Tarly.
Samwell's
Randall
father.
Tarly.
Randall Tarly.
Yes. Thank you. It seemed like in the last episode, was it the last episode or maybe it was whatever. It just seems like Jamie's kind of like, I don't know, sister. Like he's, but then in this one, he was all like, gung
ho.
He's on board.
Gung ho, team Lannister. So I wonder if we're going, and I don't know, you guys maybe already know this, but if we're gonna see an interesting switch of, I don't know, I wonder if he's eventually going to turn on her, if he's going to fight with her to the bitter end.
If he's going to continue on his redemption arc, he's got to turn on her.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what this was like the episode where I was like, wait, I thought we were on a redemption arc.
I'm pretty sure whatever happens, it's going to be tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although that's just like even in the scene in the galley of the boat with Ilaria flirting with Yara, and she sits on her lap. I'm like, one of them's going to stab another one. I just always think someone's about to be killed.
You have Game of Thrones PTSD,
yeah.
basically.
Especially with Ilaria, too. She just can't be trusted.
I know. So I just think everything will end tragically. But I just feel like with those two, especially, with Cersei, everything in her life has gone to shit. So that's the only good thing she has left. So it's got to be taken away and destroyed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Somehow.
All right. Yeah, I was just, I don't know. I was a little like, There's, yeah. I was also remembering, this is totally different, change the subject a little bit. But there was the shot of the skin being peeled and then the meat pie. But then there was also the shot where it's embarrassing that I don't know these people's names. Daenerys' right-hand woman and the Unsullied guy. Thank you.
Missandei Grey Worm. Oh, he ate a different pie? Is that what you're saying?
Grey Worm, that's right. Well, no, he ate a different pie. Well, yeah, he did. And then that's so nice of him. He didn't have to do that anyway.
I think he did have to. He didn't have any other options.
Yeah, I think he did have to. That's true. Yeah, there were not other options. But
There's a few other options.
I wonder what that... I'm just getting onto a totally different tangent because it's going to be my /2/whatever.
Strong sexual content in the Game of Microphones podcast.
Well, at the end of that, when he starts to go down on her, they shoot right to a scene where Samwell is in the library and someone slides their hand into a slot to get a book out. Yeah. The hand is slid in there in such a way that you're like, I would never slide my hand into a bookshelf like that. That was extremely suggestive.
That's hilarious.
It was done on purpose, and I don't even know exactly why it was effective, but partly, I mean, it was the sliding into the slot, sure, but it was also just going from someone giving oral sex to a bookshelf is such a stark contrast.
Yeah. I mean, it was...
Obviously, you've never worked in a library.
You've never had oral sex until you've had it with a bookshelf.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, Duncan's licking books.
You
Busted.
book liquor. Anyways, yeah, and that whole scene, I was just like, I wonder how frustrating would that be? Because, okay, this is gonna get into a castration conversation. Sorry, fellas.
I think it was coming, you know.
Is it like
It's all right.
balls, dick balls? What's going on? All of it?
In the books, it says root and stem.
Oh,
But in the show, I think that doesn't necessarily have to be true. And maybe there was a scene with Grey Worm. No, not Grey Worm. With Missandei and Danny, where they were speculating on how many of his parts were left because she noticed that he seemed to have, you know, a desire for her.
Is it the pillar or just the stones?
Yeah.
Because if it was, you know, the pillar,
I think it's
then
both.
yeah, right. I mean, that's kind of what the whole point is there because the testosterone, the whatever, not you know the all that.
But I think
sex
it would be
stuff.
both, though, and in which case, the question comes up, well, does he have any sexual desire? Well, he obviously seems to have passion and love for her, and maybe he's just using that. Maybe that's not the same thing as sexual desire. But another thing I wonder is if the Unsullied don't have testicles, which are what produces testosterone, is that really smart for a fighting force?
Warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, meh. Not really into this fighting.
Yeah. Can't we just like hang out?
Pass me my spear, please.
Yeah, I was, I don't know. I mean, again, that went on a totally different tangent from what I started my number 2 as. But
I mean, it's kind of got to be talked about.
Yeah,
it has to be. It cannot be the elephant in the room.
Simultaneously sad and beautiful moment.
Yeah,
where Grey Worm opens up himself to her entirely and deals with his shame, and the look on his face is heartbreaking as she reveals it, and then she smiles, and then he smiles, and realizes that they can potentially overcome that.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's, what did you say? It was beautiful and sad, or because I thought I was so happy for both of them, but also like, man, I've never in my life ever wanted a man to be able to have an orgasm besides myself
so badly.
I just felt so bad for him.
It is a bummer. It is a big bummer. And again, that's anyways, big bummer.
Especially when you got a lady as beautiful as Missandei knocking at the old cockpiece there.
And she had like this like total breakaway smock. Oh, just let me get this. Woof.
Oh yeah,
right.
That's right.
So
that
cool,
was the other thing I was going to talk about. Is there like, is this functional clothing for going? I mean, being out in the world. If you like accidentally like pull your string and all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, excuse me. And he like literally, it's like rip away vest or whatever he's.
I know it bordered on softcore porn, but I liked it a lot because it was so.
Oh, I did too.
It was so tender and it felt kind of real. Like when they first got on the bed, it's a little awkward, and they didn't even play any music at all, which I thought was a good choice because it just everything was literally laid bare, and you could just hear their breathing, and then he goes down and she's like breathing. And I don't know. It was just really sweet, but also sad.
Yeah.
And I wondered if they would actually show Grey Worm.
Oh man, I was too. I was really nervous for a second there.
I was hoping they would. I'm curious.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking all these questions.
Well, that's my second one, and I looked up a little bit about it, and according to Go Ask Alice, castration usually means removal of the testicles. At first, a man who's been castrated will have sexual urge. Over time, however, because he's no longer producing testosterone, he'll lose much of his libido or sexual desire. Medications can readjust the chemicals in the blood and bring back some sexual desire. Of course, that may or may not be available in the world of Game of Thrones, probably not to an Unsullied. But studies have also been done that show with increased stimulation, a castrated man can actually get an erection, have sex, and orgasm. That's if they had a penis, but sometimes not.
I feel like Euron's been, booting to the main vein bull shark testosterone or something.
Yeah.
So maybe he could hook up Grey Worm.
Uncle Greyjoy is all over the place with that shit.
He's got some powders and things in his compartment.
He is like
he can hook up Grey Worm
everything.
And then Dr. Thomas W. Johnson, Dr. Johnson, really? A retired cultural anthropologist and an expert on eunuchs, said that throughout history there have been many instances of eunuchs entering into relationships, having sex, and marrying. He says sexuality doesn't require an erect penis, tongue, lips, fingers. There are all kinds of ways for a male to be sexual with a woman. They become far less sexual, but they do not become asexual. There's no reason why Grey Worm wouldn't be as loving as any lesbian. Similar techniques if necessary. So I don't know.
Wow. Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Johnson and Jason. Wow, that was that's good.
He's a male lesbian.
Yeah.
It was nice to see because that's another like 5-year foreplay,
Yeah, it's been going on. They kissed last season though.
Yeah, right. That's what I was trying to remember.
I had forgotten, but it was when Grey Worm was injured, and when Barristan the Bold was killed, and he woke up, and he had said to Missandei, what was it? He's like, when I died, I wasn't. I felt fear, and she's like, no, fear is normal. It's okay. And he's like, I was afraid I would never see Missandei from North again.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right, what's your number one?
My number one? My number one is Crazy Uncle Euron! Black sails at midnight!
God, yeah.
Yeah, that was epic, man.
Pretty cool to see we've never seen that kind of a battle at night among ships.
Yeah,
right.
Well, his fleet is black.
Pirate battle.
Black boats, black sails with golden krakens. I really thought it was cool how they incorporated into the design of Silence, which is his ship. They made it a trireme. You guys know what that is?
I'm about to find out.
Yeah, it's basically
sounds sexual.
Yeah, it does.
It is designed for penetration.
It's dirty.
It's basically a Greek or Phoenician design. Scholars are not sure where it comes from originally, but it's a design that incorporates into the bow a basically a ram, like a battering ram that's at the waterline. So these ships are designed to broadside basically other ships right on the side and crunch up their hulls and tear through them and puncture them so that they'll sink. So you guys will remember he basically rode right through that ship and with his battering ram trireme bow. So I just thought it was a cool historical touch that they incorporated a real form of ancient sea warfare into the design of Euron's ships.
Mm-hmm. And lots of catapults with. Wow. One of my favorite things about the whole sequence was just how many like fire bombs,
projectiles,
lots of embers floating around and stuff. Fire everywhere.
Yeah,
and that big teeth spike plank bridge that he came down on.
Yeah,
so cool, man.
Thump.
Wow. Yeah.
Did we see at the end of that? I was trying to, and I had paused it. I was trying to figure out are all the daughters dead?
See at the end, Obara is impaled on a spear above the bow, and Nymeria Sand is hanging by her whip from the bow.
Okay,
and
Mama's not.
Ilaria, Tyene, and Yara have all been taken captive, as far as we know.
Okay.
Yeah. And Theon's taking a swim.
He's in the water. Which, I mean, he didn't really have, much choice. What the fuck was he going to do?
Not Theon! Reek, only Reek!
But he wasn't going, you didn't see the wheels turning like, there's nothing I can do here. If I try to save her, I'll die. So I'm going to swim away and hope to fight another way. No, it was more like, fuck,
Yeah,
I'm out of here.
Total freak out, breakdown into Reek mode.
So he probably
brutal.
didn't have a better move, but he was just full on torture. I mean, there was torture going on all around, and I think also Euron reminded him of how sadistic
Ramsay
was.
Yeah, he's another one of these unfortunate fellas that has undergone a very popular procedure in the Game of Thrones.
I know, Jesus Christ,
going from eunuch to eunuch here. Jeez.
I mean, I fully support all these women ruling now, but does everyone have to have their dicks chopped off too? We get it, okay? Women are cool.
And I just see Ramsay Bolton munching on a sausage. It was interesting though. They sort of zoom in on Yara's face there when Theon is reeking, and she has like a look of disgust that comes over her face again, like fuck, like what the hell, Theon. And it
you said you were
what
good
is he
to
gonna
go.
do?
Yeah, it mirrored the scene where Yara had tried to save him from the kennels at the Dreadfort, and Reek had bitten her and refused to leave with her. He thought it was a trap, and she sort of had a similar look on her face, like he's lost. So it was a sort of a sad parallel, reliving that moment again.
I think there was a scene early on where like one of the wildlings had one of the boys and Theon saved him, shot him or something. So it's like, but this is different. Euron is, I mean, I love that we see, okay, Euron, he seemed like a big talker, but he's actually,
hardcore. He
put his money where his mouth is. So,
yeah,
it didn't seem like it was going to be a very fair, or it was a lopsided fight, probably.
Oh, yeah. 1,000 ships to like 30.
Yeah.
Or and even just Theon versus Euron, not to mention that he had a knife to his sister's throat. So yeah, what are you going to do, really?
It's interesting that, apparently Game of Thrones is sort of following the typical TV trope of, having one villain after another. One villain's dealt with and another one pops up, like we had the governor in Walking Dead, and now we've got Negan. First we had Joffrey in Game of Thrones, then we ended up with Ramsay, and now they're both dead, and now all of a sudden we've got Euron coming out of left field. Mm-hmm. But none of the big bads before Euron, like really got down and dirty and battled themselves. Like I guess Ramsay did a little bit. Yeah, or the Hound. Those guys get down.
Anti-heroes.
Sure. Yep. I mean, Ramsay did a little bit, like he was out there bare-chested in the kennel when Yara was trying to save Theon, but he seemed to sort of hang back during the Battle of the Bastards and was just going through afterwards and finishing off the people that were still alive, like the sadist that he is.
He would only get involved if the odds were already way heavily in his favor.
Yeah, and Joffrey was not on the front lines of battle either. Tyrion tried to get him there.
I miss Joffrey so much.
Yeah.
Do you?
He's so funny, man. Really.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
I mean, my favorite character in Seinfeld is George Costanza. So
I love George.
I want to see George. I mean, George wouldn't be much different than Joffrey.
George Free.
Okay. Is it my turn?
Tis.
Who just went?
I did. Oh, no, it's Melissa's turn.
No, it's Melissa. I'm sorry.
We were just talking about this last week. The dire wolves.
Right.
And then the return of Nymeria. Nymeria? Yes. And that was really cool and that was awesome. But then at the end, she said, "That's not you." But she was kind of smiling. What does that mean? What does it mean? Is that like a puppy?
I read an interview with Dave and Dan, the showrunners, who explained this. And they hearkened it back to a moment in season 1 where Eddard Stark was talking with Arya. And he was telling her, you're going to grow up. We're going to find you a nice husband, a lordly husband, and you'll have your own castle and a keep and all this. And she said, "No, that's not me. That's not my style," basically. So
she doesn't want to be domesticated.
it was referencing
see.
that, Nymeria has her own pack at this point, and it wouldn't make sense for Nymeria to all of a sudden join Arya when she has her own responsibilities and her own setup, basically, at this point. She's not anybody's bitch.
I think it goes a little deeper than that even. I think she realized, Nymeria is wild now, and she's not, that's not the life for her.
Exactly.
And I think she also realized just at that same moment, and you know what? I'm not going to Winterfell. That's not me anymore. I'm going to kill Cersei. So I don't, I'm not sure, but my suspicion is that in that moment she decided to go back to her original plan and go to King's Landing.
I was wondering that too, but the other angle of this is that Nymeria had her pack.
That's true, yeah.
So that may have reaffirmed to Arya that she needs her pack.
The way she played it, she was already headed for Winterfell.
Right.
She was camped out on the way. And the way she played it, it seemed like she was having a realization about herself too. But we'll see.
Yeah, maybe. It totally could be. It's really interesting, the sort of back and forth and plan changing with Arya this year. She's in conflict.
Yeah, because now that she's back in Westeros, it's like triggering all her... she meets Hot Pie and everything.
Yeah.
And it's like remembrances of
that.
her old self.
That's such an 80s name. That's like a name in an 80s movie. Like Hot Pie,
Hot Pie.
like the name of the dorky guy who I don't know.
Like he should be in Goonies or something.
Yeah, or like Revenge of the Nerds, or I don't know. Well, that was Hair Pie, but that's a whole other...
It was a funny and great scene. Yeah, especially the reference to her having made pie. That was cute.
Yeah,
Right.
I didn't catch that till the second watch. He's talking about, I brown the butter before I use it in the pie. Nobody does that. It takes too much time. She's like, oh, I didn't do that. He's like, oh, you've been making pies? She's like, one or two. I fed Walter Frey some of his sons in a pie.
And then she's like, don't get yourself killed. And that was, it did feel like an 80s movie.
Yeah. Well, and that pie that she made with the remains of the humans actually looked like a really well-formed pie.
It did.
Just saying. It looked like a pretty pro pie.
It looked pretty tasty until you opened it up. Saw that thumb in there.
A finger.
Oh, that was nasty. I liked how you could see in Arya's behavior during that scene with Hot Pie too, that she was totally a different person than she was the last time that she had been with Hot Pie. She was acting very houndish. You got any ale?
Just grabbing shit.
Yeah, she was like grabbing, reaching across the table. I was like, wow,
and she seemed really like kind of blue, like.
And then, but still, he's like, I can't believe I thought you were a boy. You're cute.
Yeah,
that's
so funny. Yeah, she was really melancholy and different, and I was very touched when Hot Pie said, "Well, I thought you'd be at Winterfell." And she's like, "Idiot! Why would I be at Winterfell?
Yeah.
The Boltons hold it." He's like, "The Boltons are dead."
Oh yeah.
Jon Snow came down from the north and took back Winterfell. He's the king of the north now, dude. And she, like the way her face lit up because she had such a connection with Jon. Remember?
Yeah.
Back in season 1.
I'm glad she's going back.
And they cover that in the books a lot too. Like Jon is always thinking about how he would, mess up Arya's hair and like the connection that they had. It's there may be some incestuous type stuff going on there actually.
Oh.
Apparently,
no, come
is it?
on.
But
apparently,
but it's
George
not, though,
Martin's
because
original,
they're not really
right. They'd be
siblings.
cousins, but yeah, I guess according to George R. R. Martin's original plan, they were going to fall in love.
Oh wow.
Huh. Well,
but yeah, things changed quite drastically. But he, it's interesting at certain moments, like when he sees a grit, he thinks of Arya, or things like that. So there's hints that there's like some type of little like thing between him and Arya, but it may not be, an intimate type thing. It could just be that they love each other. And on the show, it is, there's no hint of anything like sexual or anything like that, obviously. But I thought it was really cool that she finally found out that Jon's back. He's the king in the north. Sansa's there with him. They killed the Boltons. Winterfell is the Starks again. Huge revelations, like the life-changing information for Arya.
Yeah, that was a good day for her.
that was
Yeah,
a good
really
day.
good day. She got to see Hot Pie.
It was a good day. Yeah.
All right. My number one is transitions between scenes, and you guys mentioned the two like big great ones.
Right.
The one going from
Pie.
Yeah, Pustulent, and then Missandei and Grey Worm to the book thing.
The books.
So then it made me want to look and see all the transitions. And this episode, I think they all flow really well. But just paying close attention this time, I was really impressed with how every scene flows into the next, and there's a reason or an art to the transition. So I'm going to go through them. So
yeah,
let's see. Right after Dany says she'll burn Varys alive if he betrays her, Melisandre shows up, who's famous for
fire.
Yeah. Then when Dany invites Jon Snow to come to Dragonstone and bend a knee, it cuts right to bow practice at Winterfell with an arrow missing this target, which I'm like, does that suggest that she's off target? Successful? Maybe what you're saying, Duncan, it's going to be bending a knee, but not exactly the way we think. Then the White Walkers, Davos says, if the White Walkers break through the wall, do we have enough men to fight them? Then cut to Cersei saying, if the Mad King's daughter takes the throne, she'll destroy the realm as we know it. So it's like dire possibilities on both sides. Yeah. Then Jaime says to Randall Tarley, when the war's done, Cersei will need a new warden of the South. I can think of no better man than Randall Tarley. Then we cut right to Sam. So it's like, are they saying?
Yeah.
I mean, it might just be because it's his son, but also maybe that's a clue that he'll be warden of the South. Then Sam,
wow, that'd be wild.
Yeah. Sam asks Jorah if he wants word of his condition sent to his family, and he says, I've been dead to them for years. And then we go under the castle of King's Landing with old dragon skulls dead for years.
Oh my god.
Yeah, wow, you really put this together.
I could be just making some of this up, but we'll see. Then Kyber shoots the skull of Aegon's
Balerion.
Dragon Balerion. Then we
Balerion, the Black Dread.
Yeah.
Most legendary dragon in Westerosi history.
Yeah, and we should talk more about that. But then cut to Yara, who says, if you want the Iron Throne, take it. We have an army, a fleet, and 3 dragons. So it's like tension over both sides preparing for war, and a mention of dragons right after a demonstration of how to kill dragons.
Wow.
Then there's Lady Olenna talking to Dany. Are you a sheep? No, you're a dragon. Be a dragon. Then you cut to Grey Worm sharpening his sword. I would say it's like him being a dragon. That's his version of being a dragon. He's a warrior. Mm-hmm. Then there's, of course, the one we talked about, oral sex to bookshelf.
Slut to slot.
Then there's Archmaester. The Archmaester tells Sam that the procedure's too dangerous and that's why it's forbidden. And then we cut to Sam coming in to conduct said procedure.
Yep.
Then, that's the next one is the pussy, scabby skin. And then you get to this pot pie, milky glob of pot pie bean.
If I wouldn't have seen the skin, I would have actually thought that pot pie looked really good. I know you said it looked gross. It looked kind of like nice.
Never eating pot pie again.
It looked like pudding, maybe.
Yeah, it was like pudding probably had like heavy white cream and butter in it and flour
and then to make it even more gross, the guy that takes the bite like spills all over his beard and he's like,
yeah. That would have been an interesting scene to go into after. Oh God, I'm just taking it there, but
oh God.
The sex scene could have easily have cut into that guy with. Right. Never mind, you can cut that out if you so desire.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Okay, then there's Arya finding out that Jon's king of the North, and she decides to head to Winterfell. Cut to Jon reading a message from Sam that will lead him away from Winterfell.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah. Then there's Jon proclaiming that Winterfell is under Sansa's charge. She's the only Stark left, and Littlefinger looking really happy about that. Then you cut to Jon underground looking at what used to be the Stark patriarch Ned's sarcophagus, and Littlefinger's coming in to try and manipulate him. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. Then you got awesome. Jon saying to Littlefinger, you talk to my sister, I'll kill you. Then you cut to Jon leaving and waving bye to his sister, who will no doubt soon be talked to by Littlefinger a lot.
Yeah.
Then you have Sansa watching Jon ride off, and then you cut to Arya camping along the way to meet her. And you could hear wolves howling right at the beginning of that too, which was nice. And then it kind of faded out, but then they came. Then Sansa asks Nymeria to come with her back to Winterfell, and then Nymeria returns, and then Sansa says, "That's not you." And this one I couldn't figure out at first, because the next scene is Yara's ships, and I'm like, how would those two be connected? Maybe they're not. But then you have the Sand Snakes talking about who they'll get to kill. I want Cersei. I want the Mountain. And so that felt like an Arya. You know, she has her list too. Yeah, then funny. We have Obara and Nymeria Sand teasing Tyene. "Oh, you want your mama? You keep talking about mama." Then they cut to the mama, Ilaria, flirting with Yara. And finally, this isn't really a scene to scene, but I thought it was funny when Ilaria said to Yara, "It seems like you don't need a protector." And then boom, the ship gets attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. And she did need a protector.
As it turns out.
So
nice
that's
job,
my
Jason.
number one. Thank you. So what else? There was a lot of throwbacks.
Yeah. All
Stormborn.
dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I liked how he threw that line in there so Jon would know it was really him.
And that's a reference to
the first time that they meet, when in episode 1 of the pilot episode, the Starks throw a feast in honor of King Robert arriving at Winterfell. Jon is supposed to eat away from the dais, in his bastard seat, while the Starks are eating up there with the king, and he's sort of just outside wailing away on a dummy with a sword, being all mopey and pouty in typical Jon Snow fashion. And Tyrion approaches him and says, "You're Ned Stark's bastard, aren't you?" And he's, he gets all mad because he called him a bastard, and to sympathize with him, Tyrion says, "All dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes." So it harkened back to the first time he met Tyrion. It was a little thing that he could say that would let Jon know it was Tyrion and not an impersonator.
Mm-hmm. And that's especially good because it's kind of like saying we're kind of the same. He's trying to have rapport. And then there was Jon choking Littlefinger, and I think you'd posted Ned did the same thing.
The same thing. When they're Littlefinger's leading him to the brothel where he's got Catelyn Stark hidden in secret to meet Ned. And he basically says, "Oh, I've got her in the brothel." And Ned's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And spins him around, slams him up against the wall, chokes him out. Like, if you're fucking with me, like, this is like, you bring my wife to a brothel, like, But those two shots with Ned choking out Littlefinger, and he reaches up with one hand on each side, and he's trying to like pry his fingers loose with both of his hands from his neck. The same exact shot they used for Jon Snow strangling Littlefinger, where you can see his hands prying away, and he's got the same facial expressions, same like third person Resident Evil style over the shoulder camera angle. They perfectly match each other. I thought it was a really, really cool throwback.
And Jon, nobody knows that Littlefinger conspired, against the Starks yet, right?
Nobody knows.
Jon just has a sense about him, right?
Yeah, well, Littlefinger is known to the Stark family. He was in love with Catelyn and tried to duel Brandon Stark for Catelyn's hand, and Brandon cut him from neck to navel with his sword, and after that he was shipped off to live somewhere else. But so they know of Littlefinger well, and everybody like sort of has their own opinion in the Stark family about him. Nobody really likes him, so I'm sure that Ned's heard that Jon's heard a few things.
Yeah, and I think he also just doesn't like the smell of him.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
he knows his reputation as well, for sure, his modern reputation.
Yeah, and yet he left him alone with Sansa, and I think that's going to be a bad thing, a big deal.
Yeah,
without he should have had Davos, or I think Davos went with him. He should have had someone told him, keep an eye on Littlefinger. What about?
I know. I was wondering that too. I wonder what's gonna end up happening between Littlefinger and Sansa.
Yeah,
Sansa.
We'll find out, I'm sure. What about the whole Prince Who Was Promised? That was pretty cool. How the translator was the one to correct the gender of that. Could be a woman too.
That applies to the books as well.
It's like
That's,
in Star Trek where all the captains are sir, whether they're male or female. Saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Podrick calling Brienne sir.
Sir.
Or milady or what?
She was so... that was with the conversation with Melisandre. Dany was so open to her because she liked the servants of the Lord of Light in Essos helping her. But if she knew that what Melisandre had done, especially burning Shireen alive, but other things too, I wonder if she would be so welcoming of her. And I think she doesn't realize that Melisandre actually thinks that Jon Snow is the prince who was promised.
Right. You know? She was very careful with her language there. The Lord of Light, I feel like you have a part to play, as does another. You know.
Right.
After her whole thing with Stannis, I think Melisandre's being more cautious with the way she interprets prophecy in general. But she was definitely being very cautious with Daenerys here. Pretty interesting interaction between those two.
It's cool to see Sam's father coming into it a little bit. That'll set up some conflict, I'm sure. But also it showed he had some integrity because he's trying to stay loyal to the Tyrells, even though... Yeah. But he just fears Cersei, I guess.
Right, and we kind of sneakily were told that what a great military commander he is by Jaime mentioning that he's the only commander to have beaten Robert Baratheon in the field.
Only one ever, yeah.
Yeah. Which is pretty wild, so he must be pretty awesome.
What is that about? I don't remember that. Is that like history?
Yeah, it was during Robert's rebellion.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, he's the only guy to win a battle during that war against Robert, who went undefeated for the rest of the war, killing Rhaegar, taking King's Landing, doing everything.
And then there was the whole going underground and seeing all the dragon skeletons. And yeah, I looked up that one big dragon that they were testing the weapon out on. And that's, as you said, Balerion. He calls it Balerion the Dread. And that's the dragon that the original Aegon Targaryen rode across the sea to conquer the Seven Kingdoms hundreds of years ago. And then used its breath to forge the Iron Throne from swords surrendered by the lords offering fealty after that war.
Oh man, so cool.
A lot of history.
Is also the largest dragon ever in Westeros. Monstrous in size. You saw how big that skull was. I've been waiting to see if we would ever see Balerion's skull, because in the first season, Arya was down there hiding and sort of spying on Varys and Illyrio Mopatis as they're talking about, killing Ned and propelling Daenerys and Viserys into the game. But it was just really cool to see Balerion. Yeah, maybe they, in the books they call him the Black Dread. Maybe they left that out so they wouldn't be confused with Drogon, who's also black. That's the other significant thing about Drogon, Dany's dragon, is that he seems to be like the reincarnation of Balerion. Big, huge black dragon. Just super badass.
And I think he's going to get bigger next season. I read
God.
That.
Damn.
It's going to be terrifying. Oh man. And that ballista. So Qyburn has, mentioned that the greatest craftsmen and weapon makers or whatever from the King's Landing had been working tirelessly to create these ballistas. Apparently, in fantasy, in the genre, I guess ballistas like that are the only really successful way of fighting dragons, commonly, apparently. So, so hopefully that does.
They need a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, a whole bunch of them with skilled operators who can reload them and stuff.
And that shot right into Balerion's eye, broke right through his oculus.
Yeah,
right into the brain.
Ouch.
So that does not bode well.
Ouch.
Yeah, not bode well for our dragons.
There's one more thing I wanted to mention. This book, A Chronicle of the Wars Following the Death of King Robert the First, the Archmaester's writing, and, Sam winces and he's like, "You don't like the title?" I thought it was cute to see him insecure about his title because he was just talking about how you need style to write.
Yeah.
Have good research, but also style. And Sam says something a little more poetic. And that does make me think that maybe the poetic title is A Song of Ice and Fire, and maybe Sam is writing it, and maybe he's making up the stuff that he doesn't know because he just got the advice that you need to do research, but also have style. And the guy, he talks about the writer that had style and invented half of the stuff in the book.
Huh.
So who knows?
Really interesting. Yeah, that goes along with our listeners' theory that Sam is the narrator.
Yeah. And it sort of also parallels with J.R.R. Tolkien with Bilbo Baggins writing There and Back Again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one other cool thing. In that scene where Cersei was shooting Balerion's skull with the ballista, I don't know if you guys noticed, but it was a modified version of Light of the Seven that was playing the same song.
I meant to. Somebody read that. I didn't go back and listen. I didn't catch it.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. The same song as that was playing when Cersei blew up the Sept. So that's like Cersei's conquering theme, basically, at this point, it seems.
Yeah, yeah. That doesn't bode well for the dragons because last time...
It does not.
Yeah. All right, cool. That's good. Let's take a little break. There's more to come. Stay with us.
Out of the darkness they came, with cannons are raging and torches of flame, slaying all bullshits who stand in their way. Like sails at midnight, you're dead by daylight. Like sails at midnight, you're fleet, too late.
So, first in the news, we have an article from Gizmodo. Machine learning predicts characters most likely to die in Game of Thrones. There is a guy named Milan Janisov who works at the Central European University, and he works in algorithms and social media stuff, I guess. But he basically created a social network between all the characters of the show. It tracks how much time they've spent on screen together. It accounts for all the characters who have died. Apparently 61 characters have died. It's, quote, an aggregated network of the realm's social system. He says, in this network, each node represents a character of the story, and the weight of the link between each pair of characters symbolizes the strength of their social interaction. I considered scenes to be the elementary units of the social interaction. An average episode contains about 20 of them. In other words, scenes are complete graphs, or clicks, increasing the tie strength between all the pairs of people present by one. By calculating these scene-level complete networks and then aggregating them, we arrive to the global social network of Westeros. So, using this, apparently, he claims that you can use social ties and conversations to look for similarities and consistencies and predict who will die. And who will survive. So who do you guys think is the most likely character to die this season based on this algorithm?
God.
I will guess blindly and say Jaime.
Nope. Jaime is like number 14-ish about. What about you, Melly? What would you guess?
Oh, God. Theon?
Theon is actually the least likely character of all to die, according to this.
Wow.
Can't believe that.
I must win something for that.
Yeah, lovers of dragons and the mother of dragons may be upset to know that this predicts that Daenerys Targaryen is the second most likely character to die, with a 91% probability.
Whoa.
Yeah, the most likely character to die apparently is Tyene, who's the only surviving sand snake at this point. Grey Worm is number 3. Robin Arryn's number 4. Podrick Payne is number 5. Further down the list, you have Arya Stark at like number 9. Sandor at 10. Jaime's at like 14. But yeah, Daenerys is apparently the most likely to be killed, according to this.
So has this machine learning algorithm been used to correctly predict deaths, like say for season 6?
Let's see. I think that it does.
I'm highly skeptical.
I'm feeling a little bit like, if this is true, then I don't like that machine. It's a giant spoon machine.
Can you run that on my family?
You are the first to. Oh, God.
Oh, damn it.
Another team from Germany performed a similar exercise before the premiere of season 6.
People have
and
time
the data
for this
correctly foretold the demise of Tommen and Stannis Baratheon, who ranked 1 and 2 respectively on that list.
Oh, my God.
So apparently
Wow,
there's
nerds.
similar technology has predicted accurately outcomes
All right.
for previous seasons, which is horrifying.
Yeah. We'll see.
All
We'll
right.
see.
Number 2, as you guys know, San Diego Comic-Con was held over the past week,
Yeah.
and some interesting stuff came out of there. One of the interesting things was that, every year beforehand, Game of Thrones had just wrapped up at the time of San Diego Comic-Con, so they would have a lot to talk about during the panels. This year, there had only been one episode that had aired yet, so there was not a lot of current plot stuff to talk about during the panel, but there was still some interesting stuff that came out. Sophie Turner was asked if she thinks Sansa is being manipulated by Littlefinger. She said maybe at one point she was, but by now she's been around so many devious people, she's just as good at manipulating as he is. So that's interesting to get Sophie Turner's take on that. Maybe it won't be too bad of a thing for Littlefinger to be left alone with her if that's the case.
And not only that, but the fact that not only does she not say, oh no, she knows how to spot someone like that, but to focus on that she's just as good as manipulating might mean that there's some Sansa manipulating coming up too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Gwendolyn Christie. Oh, and another little interesting thing. Hodor was moderating this panel.
Hodor.
Christian Nairn.
And did he just say Hodor the whole time?
Nobody could understand the question.
And they're like, well, politically, I think that.
So,
how dare you ask me
Gwendolyn,
that?
Yeah, Hodor. Gwendolyn Christie says that the reason Brienne is so loyal to the Starks is that in Catelyn Stark, she saw the true strength of woman. And when the characters met, Brienne realized that she didn't have to be masculine to be taken seriously. She could, quote, be propelled by her own sense of what is right. So by helping the Stark girls, Brienne is, quote, connecting to an idea that's greater than herself. So I think that was cool that she was, Brienne or Gwendolyn Christie sort of illuminated the idea that it was the first time that she had met a real strong female in the world, and it kind of changed her view of what strength is.
Yeah, because you might think that she should act kind of manly, but she's just tough, but she doesn't seem like she's trying to act like a man in that role.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, so it's kind of a cool revelation. Let's see. Sophie Turner has a joking response while talking about Sansa's current worldviews. She says, she's woke now, guys. She's real woke.
She's woke.
Turner thinks her character is done with any real romantic love because of all she's been through and is probably incapable of trusting anyone, which she says is probably important when you play the Game of Thrones. John Bradley explained that Sam is at the Citadel solely for the purpose of aiding his new friend, or his friend Jon Snow. He thinks Sam wishes he could stand shoulder to shoulder with Snow in war, but knows he can't, so instead he went to the Citadel to find any information that would help Jon win his war. The Citadel is his battlefield, Bradley said.
Nice.
Yeah.
People have, obviously been making a big deal of the crush that Tormund has for Brienne, and Gwendolyn Christie said she doesn't think Brienne likes it too much. She finds it awkward, but doesn't deny that there is some potential secret enjoyment in it.
Awesome.
She may end up liking him, or according to Christie, she may still like someone else. Wonder who that could be.
Jamie Lannister.
Earlier, Jason, you said that, you missed Joffrey. And that kind of made me think of this, which the whole cast was asked which dead character they'd like to bring back. And the best answers were from Sophie Turner and John Bradley. Turner said Joffrey because she loved working with actor Jack Gleason so much. He's a really cool guy. Don't judge the actor based on that role, for sure. It's a total opposite. And John Bradley said that he wished they never killed Jon Snow because then he wouldn't have had to talk about it every 5 seconds for a whole year.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty
True.
funny.
That's good.
Finally, Sophie Turner was asked about her relationship with Jon. She couldn't say much, as it will obviously be a big part of the current season, but what she would say was that her character is definitely frustrated by the sexism of the North in their culture, and hopes that Jon realizes how much more experience and how much better she is at the political side of ruling a kingdom than he is. She said that Jon's a military man, she's the politician, and Sophie Turner hopes that they can each, take advantage of each other's skills to form a cohesive ruling unit.
We didn't talk about it, but I thought probably I could understand why nobody wanted Jon to go to Dragonstone, because a Lannister and a Targaryen are asking him to go, and they need him there, and they haven't had good experiences with Lannisters and Targaryens recently. But he knows Tyrion, so it makes a difference when you know someone personally, and he knows he can trust him. And I was proud of him for sticking to his guns,
Right?
But also, it could turn out to be the wrong decision. You never know.
But also, he's the only person at Winterfell who A, has seen the White Walkers,
Yeah.
and B, who is a king that Daenerys will take seriously.
Yeah, he doesn't
Right.
really have much of a choice.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
seems like the
kinda.
right thing to me.
He
And
has
like
to
I
go.
said, it was so cool because not one person supported him, not even his sister, and yet he still stood firm. So I'm like, man, he's really
Right.
come into his own as a king.
And Tyrion had said to Daenerys this episode, I can't speak for prophecy or for the flames, but I know I've met Jon Snow. I liked him and trusted him. So Tyrion trusts Jon Snow. They joked about grumps and snarks, or grumpkins and snarks beyond the wall, and these stupid rumors and legends that Tyrion was mocking and Jon Snow was laughing about when they had visited at the wall together. And so if Jon comes down now and says, "Look, I've seen the army of the dead. This is no joke," that I think Tyrion's opinion of Jon and his experience with him will make Tyrion be more likely to believe Jon, and
Yeah,
Dany's
that'll be
experience
helpful.
with Tyrion, Tyrion believing will make Dany more likely to take it seriously because she takes Tyrion really seriously.
Yeah.
So it's important that it's Jon that goes.
When they were telling Dany about Jon, and they said he marshaled, the forces of the wildlings to help take back Winterfell, and she said he's quite a man. She looked kind of threatened, but also I think that reminded her of what she did with the Dothraki. So
Right. I think that was sort of an attractive thing for her. Like, wow, this guy, he cares about the little people. He saved the wildlings, and he's also a good enough ruler to convince the North to unite with the wildlings.
Right.
Like, wow,
So
he
he's
seems like quite a
simultaneously
guy.
a threat and also potentially a great ally
/ husband.
/ husband and a nephew.
Yeah.
Husband / nephew.
Well,
So I guess they aired a teaser trailer at Comic-Con as well, and I didn't watch it, but I heard that the big commotion that people got out of it was that it showed Melisandre with Daenerys. So that was this week
bed?
that we got that. No.
everything is about sex for me on this episode, apparently.
I mean, they're already together, so
Yeah, they're already together. Like,
That was
together?
the Comic-Con trailer was before that aired.
got it,
So
got
that
it.
was the other thing, and we did see that come to fruition this week.
Oh, okay.
and people listening,
How much more
I'm-
together can they get?
this week on Walking Dead Cast, it may already be out as you're hearing this, or it might be out the next day, but the whole episode is just talking about news that came out at Comic-Con, so we'll cover some of that Game of Thrones stuff, plus so much came out this year, so we'll try to touch on a lot of it.
Nice. Oh, Melly, speaking of your obsession with the sex on the show at this moment, I heard a couple other podcasts and people discussing how the amount of sexposition has decreased drastically on this TV show. There's one guy whose videos I watch, Angry Joe on YouTube, and he does reviews of things, really funny stuff. But he had he'd come very close to waging his reputation on the fact that we would see 0 pairs of boobs this season. So a lot of these people that thought the sex position was gone were probably, I want to hear what they have to say after this episode.
Still boobs.
I would say that there was some boobs, but no sex position in this episode, because sex position is about when a piece of information needs to be imparted, and to make it more interesting, they add naked women, and that wasn't what this scene was about. It was a naked woman scene. Technically, it just wasn't about that. It was about their relationship, and they weren't trying to
character development.
Yeah. So yeah, you could argue that
more of a joking comment from my part. I just thought it was funny.
Got it.
Okay, so some more Comic-Con news. Brienne of Tarth, Gwendolyn Christie, was asked whether, considering she has been in Game of Thrones and Star Wars at this point, she was asked whether she thinks that Star Wars fans or Game of Thrones fans are crazier. And she gave a diplomatic answer saying it's not really a craziness, but the level of passion is pretty much equal between the two. So she didn't. I think she's probably right. We also have some more, an update from George R.R. Martin as to the release of The Winds of Winter, which is the next book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, number 6, the penultimate release. The Winds of Winter, which will be followed by A Dream of Spring. He basically has said that he expects that it will be released in 2018, that he still has a few months of work to do on it, and he didn't give a date or anything like that. So, don't get your hopes up, people.
Sounds about right. That sounds pretty.
He also said he was going to try and finish it before season 6.
Yeah, he also said he was going to try to finish it before Halloween of last year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, before season 6. Yeah. And he's working on another book as well called Fire and Blood, which will be sort of like a collection of fake histories of Targaryen kings. And that may be released next year as well. So we may have 2 Game of Thrones related book releases next year. And I'm hoping that he's been working on A Dream of Spring in secret along with The Winds of Winter, and that he will end up dropping both of those simultaneously before the final season of Game of Thrones. But that's just a fanboy's hope, people. Just a fanboy's hope.
I wouldn't bet the bank on it.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. I will not be, placing for bets any gold or silver. Another little interesting thing I saw in the news is about the intro sequence of this year's season of Game of Thrones, where when it goes up towards the wall, the whole intro's kind of covering the map and the different places. We have the Citadel on the map at this point, which is new this season. But when it goes up towards the wall, this relates to Sandor Clegane's vision in the fire last week. Apparently, it seems to show the sea where the wall meets the sea at the east, at East Watch by the sea. It seems to show the sea frozen up there. So that could be
like a bridge.
A sort of bridge for the walkers to make their way around the wall and avoid the magic.
That's not good.
Yeah, I seem to remember water freezing as they approach anyway. So I'm wondering if they could just create an ice bridge for themselves just by approaching the sea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it seems to show the sea frozen up there, which is, foreboding.
Get a dragon up there to just breathe on it for a while. Stand there.
Drogon, melt! Dracarys! And that is it for the news this week.
Awesome.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, that was really fun to hear.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be weird for you.
Now it's time for... No, I appreciate it. That was awesome. Now it's time for Raven's Calls.
All right. Nick Quinto says, this show gives me the best fucking chills.
Yeah.
Me too, man. My goosebumps on my arms are crazier than this show.
Audrey Strad says, "So awesome! I can barely contain myself till the next episode." Me too.
Same here.
Rima Jo says, "Girl power continues with 4 strong women talking strategy better than most men on the show. Be a dragon will be my new motto." The scene that stuck with me the most was Cersei and Qyburn with the dragon skulls. When that giant arrow pierced the dragon skull, it gave me absolute chills down my spine. Don't touch my dragons.
I'm worried about the dragons.
Yeah, I felt personally attacked when they did that. Desecration of history is abhorrible to me.
That's true. Yeah, that's like the worst part of that.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, there was an interesting discussion I heard which regards the Citadel, which seems to be the equivalent of the historical, like the Library of Alexandria, where you have the greatest collection of knowledge from all around the world. And the Archmaester Ebros had said to Sam last week that, the maesters serve as the memory of the 7 kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love that.
That they seem to, they're, no matter what, they've survived everything, and he wasn't too worried. I'm hoping that this does not foreshadow the destruction of this library.
Oh, God.
Which would be so brutal to watch.
It's like the Dark Ages. Yeah.
Because if it seems to mirror the Library of Alexandria, like a portside library, all the greatest collection of history and knowledge that the world has ever seen. And what happened to the Library of Alexandria? It got burned to the fucking ground.
Yeah, that hurts to think about. Yeah.
It does hurt, and we're still suffering the consequences of that nowadays. But that's something to watch for. Hopefully the Citadel will not be destroyed.
I heard there was, the early iPhone designs in there, but it got delayed like 300 years.
like 2,000 years.
It's probably better than if that's the case, but...
yeah, that's true.
Eddie Gilbert says, can't wait next week for John and Auntie D.
Auntie D. Wait, she's his aunt? It's like I'm not even watching the same show as everybody else. Anyways, Lindsay Borton says, "Whoa, tension between Dany and Varys. I'm pretty sure Varys will be taking the heat of Euron's attack."
Ooh, interesting.
Huh.
Yeah. Bad idea. Tony Eichholt says, "How did Euron know to ambush Yara?" That is a good question.
Yeah, I've heard people are speculating that there may be a spy in Dany's company.
I mean, that would be better than just the writers going, let's just have him show up there.
Right.
I think that Dragonstone is relatively close to King's Landing, like really close.
It is, yeah.
So if you set sail from King's Landing, you might have to pass that fleet to get anywhere. So it's not plausible. It's not implausible that they could have just stumbled upon it.
Set up a blockade or something.
Yeah, but he knew what ship those specific people were in, it seemed, because that was a very targeted strike. So
he knows his fleet, maybe. Well, I guess he's been gone a while, but
true, he does know his fleet.
Identify it, yeah.
Yeah, he probably saw Yara's ship at the King's Moot. Okay, Derek Pacheco says, "I love that Ilaria will be the gift brought to Cersei by Euron. Vengeance for the killing of Myrcella will be more than enough for Cersei to accept Euron's proposal. Euron versus Jaime incoming." Who's left for Dorne? Does this mean that there's a void at Dorne as well as the twins? It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think they had picked up the Dornish army yet, right? But the question is, who's left to rule it?
Vacuum in leadership.
Right.
Interesting.
But that is a great point about, I didn't even think about that, about bringing Ilaria because she killed Myrcella. Yeah,
I hadn't considered that either. That was a really good idea. And interestingly, with the whole Euron and Cersei proposal, the Jon Snow Daenerys potential proposal would be a great mirror for that. 2 psychos getting married in King's Landing, and 2 like level-headed people who care about the small folk. Yeah, getting hitched at Dragonstone.
What if there's a twist and Jon Snow marries Cersei?
That would just be... That might be the show where I'm like, well, I don't know.
Or they just all get married, all 4 of them, and it's just...
There you go.
Polyamory.
Yeah.
All right. Joe Fletcher says, I like that the show is giving the Lannisters a fighting chance. Sorry, my old lady eyes. The one-sided Dany and her army took a big hit tonight. Yeah. It won't be as easy as she probably envisioned. Yeah, there's going to be some changes, I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's got it. I mean, I was feeling almost like this episode feels like it's setting up for this season to be the last season. So a lot of shit has to go wrong to bring us to the next season, I would say. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Angelica Garcia Decker says, Theon really reeked the fuck out.
No.
It's a great phrase. Totally did. Claire Johnson says, if Theon had made a move, Yara would be dead before he took 2 steps, and then Euron would laugh and kill Theon, which is absolutely correct. So if one of them was going to survive, Theon had to jump ship.
Yeah,
he may have saved her too.
Yeah, because he took her as a hostage,
prisoner,
right?
Prisoner, whatever. Ariel King. My heart broke a little for Arya tonight. Mine too.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Nymeria is going to be within
somehow,
reach. Though, you know, they were going to need that Chekhov's wolf pack to show up at some point, and they will.
I don't know. I feel like that was a letting go, but you could be right. Pake Allen says, Arya realizing that Jon was in Winterfell again actually made me tear up just a little bit. Sansa and Jon reuniting was sweet, but if Arya and Jon reunite, that's when I'll straight up cry.
And here's where my really sad theory comes into play, because I think in the show and definitely in the books, they often remark on that Arya is very similar looking to Ned's sister Lyanna. So it could be a really, really tragic parallel if, considering the close relationship between Jon and Arya, if when they're finally reunited, Jon is only arriving to Arya in time to watch her die.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so that would suck. Lindsay Borton says, on a more icky note, why in the world would we transfer from pustules to pot pie? Ooh, that's even better than pus to pot pie. Good job, Lindsay. That was very nice alliteration. She says, I happen to be eating dinner while watching this. I'm not so hungry anymore.
Yeah. Rein Drogmüller said, I didn't realize how much I missed hot pie.
I'm rewatching
Hot pie.
season
Hot
2 right
pie.
now, so I just got a dose of hot pie a couple of, like 2 nights ago.
Santos S. Sanchez says, the Jorah scene was by far the foulest I've ever witnessed. The worst part was I was just sitting down with my dinner in front of me. The cutaway to the next scene did not help much either. Yuck.
Yuck.
No eating dinner.
Michael Torzidlo says, did a rewatch recently, so it was awesome hearing Tyrion and Jon Snow talk about their meeting that was literally 6 years ago. I agree.
Yep.
Super cool. That was one of the most enjoyable parts of the first season, was the pairing of Tyrion and Jon Snow, in my opinion. I like their chemistry.
Jesse Daniel, Littlefinger's life needs to be threatened more often. I enjoy seeing him squirm a little. Arya's encounter with the wolves was a nice nod to her line last week about the wolves and the sheep. And I'm so glad the sand snakes are gone.
2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be happy about that. Our next email comes from Travis Sigler. Hey there, this is Travis Sigler from Portland, Oregon tuning in. Holy hell, what a climactic episode. Just off the top of my head, my favorite part had to be the imagery of sibling roles in this episode, especially the role of older brothers. Here we have the king in the north choke-slamming that slimy git Littlefinger, threatening to kill him if he touches his sister. And then come the conclusion of the episode with Reek, yes, he is back, jumping ship, abandoning his sister. I thought he was on a path of redemption. How about that Jorah scene with the transition cut? Anyone fancy grayscale bread pudding? Ugh. I loved Tyrion speaking up for Jon. The meeting next week is going to be a song of ice and fire. It's so true. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my Jon Snow cosplays I sent a while back, and my friend's band 7 Kingdoms and my wolf dogs. Keep up the awesome podcast. Night gathers. Yeah, he's got a badass wolf dog named Greywind.
Oh.
You can look him up on Facebook. Greywind the wolf dog. He's
Greywind,
like 90% wolf or something.
Wow. So that's part of his cosplay then, right?
Yeah, and his friend's band Seven Kingdoms is a Game of Thrones band.
Awesome.
metal band, like symphonic metal. They're female singer, amazing guitarists, really good music. So check those guys out too if you get a chance.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. And yeah, next, if Jon and Daenerys meet, that's a Song of Ice and Fire starting right then. So so cool. Good observation.
Or if it was Pat Benatar, it would be Fire and Ice. Sorry.
I'll take your word for that, Melly.
We'll put that in the interlude next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the suggestion. I'm actually going to do that for sure. First time they meet.
Nice. That's great.
That's like my karaoke go-to, so I will sing the shit out of that song. All right, this is from Nick Dabrowski. Can you see Dany being a villain at some point, and do you think that the White Walkers can be reasoned with? Remember, Craster was left alone by them as long as he gave them his sons. That's true. I didn't think about that. Thanks for all your hard work, and can't wait to hear more from you guys. I can't talk. Wait.
It's kind of like a Fargo accent or something.
More from you guys.
Okay.
More from you guys. I have an interesting response for this email. It does seem, based on Craster's situation, that the White Walkers can be reasoned with as long as you can provide them with something they want, which was, in Craster's case, the capability to create new White Walkers. Remember last week, Cersei was talking about a dynasty to last 1,000 years, right? And her kids are dead. She and Jaime's kids are dead. So they, the dynasty she said it could be for us. We know that White Walkers can live a long time. We know that humans can be turned into White Walkers by being touched by White Walkers, like the baby did. What if Cersei decides to team up with the White Walkers in exchange for immortality?
Oh, God.
That seems pretty far out to me.
Far-fetched,
if it happens.
Especially considering she's one of the furthest people away from the White Walkers at this point.
Yeah.
But we did see in Dany's visions years back the throne room destroyed and filled with snow. So winter does get down to that level, apparently. So who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah, I think Craster was giving them his babies, and they were like, good, we're building up our army. This is how we create more White Walkers. It seemed that's what they were doing, or at least creating whites. But they're just building up their army, waiting for winter to come so they can come down and kill everybody, Craster included, probably.
Maybe what Cersei would have to offer would be the other half of a pincer attack from the south. When the dead could attack from the north, she could attack from the south and help them to kill everybody and expand their army. Maybe in exchange for doing that, they would grant her the gift of White Walkerdom.
Wow.
That seems like a different show to me.
Yeah, yeah, that would be.
Me too,
that's
but
a spin-off. Right.
I don't think it's likely, but
yeah, they should have a spin-off that's just a sitcom set fully in the White Walkers realm.
A sitcom.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know.
I guess Hodor would definitely have to be a White Walker in that show if that was the case.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, Hodor, did you grab that baby from Craster? Hodor?
God damn it. Okay, now we have a couple of calls. First one is from Kristen Howell.
Hey everybody, it's Kristen Howell. I wanted to just talk about this episode for a second. I went to bed last night just buzzing. It was so amazing. I don't think that I've audibly squealed that much in a long time. Everything that I've wanted to happen is happening. Melisandre telling Dany about Jon, and just getting that storyline rolling was just so, so exciting. But the one thing that I really, really loved, that, you'll probably talk about, perhaps, hopefully, is Tyrion and Tyrion's loyalty to Daenerys, I think it's going overlooked a little bit just because of everything else that's happening right now. When he took that unsullied, chess piece, and he knocked over the Lannister lion and put it on top of his home, Casterly Rock, as a way to beat his own family that's sitting on the throne and in King's Landing right now. I just thought that was such a testament to how far he's come and how much he really believes in Daenerys. And I just don't know how much I like the Queen of Thorns whispering in Daenerys' ear right now, telling her to be a dragon and not to listen to Tyrion. I don't know how much of that is fueled by revenge for, the decimation of her own family.
Right. That's true. Good point.
I really think that I really hope that Daenerys, kind of takes a step back and realizes how all in Tyrion is and, how valuable he is. He did run this kingdom and he ran it well. And I really hope that, she takes his advice. And also, we are going to see Casterly Rock. Oh my gosh.
Right? Oh
man,
man, I'm excited for that too.
I want to see the Unsullied and the Dothraki just right into Casterly Rock and knock over all the lions and pull down all of the drapes or banners or whatever you call it. I don't even care how it happens. I can't even wait. Oh my gosh, I can't even wait. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I can't even wait until next week. And I'll see you in the message boards. All right? Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Kristen.
Nice.
Kristen's awesome.
Yeah.
So Daenerys is totally following Tyrion's advice right now. She's with him.
Right. And I agree. I'm not too stoked necessarily about Olenna whispering in her ear, but on the positive side, I don't think she was necessarily saying anything negative about Tyrion himself. She actually complimented him and said that he was clever, and she basically just told Dany not to, be a sheep for other clever men. Basically, like it didn't seem like it was necessarily as targeted toward Tyrion as it was a message for Dany to be her own person and to not do what other people say necessarily. But that's Dany's strong point, is that she's one of the few leaders that we've seen who listens to everybody's counsel and then either chooses the best option laid out in front of her or picks the option that only she can see, which provides a better solution. So I'm counting on Dany to continue doing that, and if she does that, I think that she'll find Tyrion's input to be valuable. So I'm feeling confident with the Tyrion-Dany situation.
I think it's a little charitable. I agree with everything you said, except I'm not sure. I think Olenna was saying you should be ignoring Tyrion right now and just going in fighting. I think that's what she was trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe, or at least, there was also sort of an empowering aspect to it, which is like, right. Just like you said, more just follow your own thing. Yeah.
But I don't think it was necessarily against Tyrion personally. It may have been against this current strategy, but not against Tyrion as a person, as a Lannister.
Well, as a man. She made a point to say ignore men, and he was the only man in the room
right,
laying out the strategy. Yeah. So it wasn't about him personally, but it was him being a member of men.
It's evil men.
Men.
Lovely men, wonderful men.
That's a great song.
All right, and then we have one more call from someone who didn't leave her name. Here we go.
Hey, so I'm just on my way home from work and listening to the podcast, and I just had the craziest idea and thought I would spitball a little bit. What if the dragon glass can actually turn the White Walkers somehow back into regular people? They all team up to fight Cersei with Daenerys and Jon Snow. Probably far-fetched, but I thought it was some food for thought. Let me know what you think. Thanks.
It's a good idea.
That'd be so cool.
They're a bit decomposed, but maybe it would like rejuvenate them to like human again, like fully put together.
We saw that Benjen had the process halted from Dragon Glass.
Yeah.
But you'd need something else to bring them back and replace all those missing teeth and fingers and stuff.
Maybe they could be hijacked with fire magic.
Right.
Because there's like the whites, which are ice whites essentially, and then there's dudes like Jon Snow and Beric Dondarrion who are essentially fire whites. Dead people being propelled by the magic of the Lord of Light, as opposed to the whatever ice magic is powering the whites. So there seems to be like two sides of this coin. Intercept
the Wi-Fi signal and hack it, kind of.
Yeah, have the Lord of Light hack into the Lord of Ice's Wi-Fi signal and take over those drones.
All right, that's our show, episode 31. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thank you guys for coming on, as usual.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Hope you enjoyed it. If you guys want to give us a call, you can call us at 813-563-3739. That's 813-JOFFREY.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at game@podcastica.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast.
And be sure to check out the other great podcasts at podcastica.com. Also, another good way to send us a call is just record yourself using the voice memo app on your phone and email it to game@podcastica.com. Those sound really good.
Yeah, nice high quality audio.
Yeah. And please check out patreon.com/JasonKaren. We have some good rewards on there. And if you're part of the message board, you'll find a lot of other raving Game of Thrones fans.
Yeah.
Next week, it's Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 3, The Queen's Justice. Which queen?
Yeah, good question.
I guess we'll find out.
All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
Are you a sheep? No, you're a dragon. Now be a dragon.
I like dragons.